Today we're going to talk about the vintage trend. This trend started in the 1960s with the hippies because of their social protest to reduce consumerism by using secondhand clothes, always promoting happiness, openness, and tolerance. But now it is mainly because of the environmental crisis, becoming a revolution against mass-produced fast fashion, and the pursuit of each person's individuality. And later on, a lot of people started to notice this, and many new companies emerged like thrift shops, online shops, Instagram pages, or even apps where people can sell their clothes in good conditions.
There's been an all-time high in thrift and vintage shopping amongst youngsters looking for unique pieces to add to their outfits and surroundings. Consumers are constantly returning to the classics. Also, almost all designers and fast fashion chains are taking inspiration in old collections and putting out vintage-inspired clothing and accessories to feed the demand of this new style and way of living. As awareness for sustainability grows, a changing consumer attitudes towards wearing and utilizing second-hand goods is notably impacting the fashion and production industry as a whole, making vintage fashion much more desirable to
The three main service categories where the vintage trend is present is in the fashion, gadgets, and furniture. In the fashion, we can see many of the trendsetters wearing clothes like mom jeans, loose dresses, jumpers, crop tops, and vibrant colors. As for in gadgets, we can see the trend present in Polaroid cameras, Game Boys, and turntables. And for furniture, the fine Victorian furniture.
Today, it's very common to see top models like Bella Hadid and Kendall Jenner rocking vintage pieces. Kendall even has a collection of vintage cars, and if you take a look at her house, you can clearly see she has taken inspiration from vintage decor. And I'm not talking only about models. Even actresses are fighting over vintage pieces to wear on red carpets. I'm talking about vintage Gucci, vintage Chanel, and vintage Oscar de la Renta. Teens all over the world are also moving this huge trend. Everybody has a vintage piece or vintage-inspired piece in their wardrobe. As we mentioned before, designers all over the world are using vintage as an inspiration and bringing old iconic collections back to life.
The stage of the trend today for the fashion segment is mainstream, and not just because the world has been spreading fast thanks to the influencers or famous people, but also because a lot of fast fashion industries are aware of this trend and started producing very affordable clothes that have the vintage aesthetic, and people are acquiring these vintage looks in clothes, accessories, and gadgets, which is a little disappointing because it is losing the purpose that it was reducing our carbon footprint, a really important subject nowadays, and there is no better way to do it rather than reducing consumerism.
As designers, we have to be aware of trends to better our understanding about what the public wants and needs. The vintage trend doesn't seem to be slowing down, so it's really important for designers to find an angle they can work it from. As industrial designers, we think that our most important job in this trend is to keep it low impact. And its core, the vintage trend, it's supposed to be low impact, but because of demand, it's now becoming more and more about producing and contributing to fast fashion and mass production. Taking inspiration from iconic vintage products is really fun, but we have to find a way to make these products lower their impact. And as industrial designers, we can design using new materials such as sustainably resourced materials, recyclable materials, and biodegradable materials. Today, a lot of people are looking for a new style, and vintage style has gained a lot of popularity throughout the years. Vintage style has been selling so much that even stores that are not vintage are selling things that look vintage. But of course, this comes with a price. The trend is increasingly losing its sustainable part. We can't stop people from constantly contributing to fast fashion and mass production, but we can find a way to make new vintage-inspired products in a sustainable way with low impact and recycled materials. We wanted our product to follow 4 main characteristics. We decided it had to be a mix between vintage and new style. We wanted it to be refreshing. We wanted it to give new life to used materials, and we needed it to be low impact.
Our design, we started to make an exploration process with different products, sketches, textures, colors, and patterns to come up with the best product the young people would like to wear. Always keeping in mind that today, as we mentioned before, we're facing an environmental crisis. That's why we decided to come up with a product completely inspired by the vintage eyewear silhouette, but making it a little different so it looked like a piece of jewelry. We wanted to use exclusively recycled materials to make the eye frame. In this case, the piece we designed is made out of different recycled metallic products. It was very important for us to keep the vintage line, but also be responsible with the environment.
As we mentioned earlier, with our design we took inspiration from the iconic small chic vintage glasses and gave them a modern and refreshing twist by making a minimalist abstraction of the shape. The design is merely to accessorize one's image, but by making them with a completely recycled material, we can reduce the impact that comes with the popularization and recreation of the vintage trend. The purpose of our design is not only to accessorize the face and give a refreshing twist to an old style, but to help bring back sustainability to the vintage trend. We believe that even if we can't stop people from buying fast fashion and contributing to mass production, we can start at the root and change our designs and production methods, making them much more sustainable.